Well, welcome back, YouTube. This is a part 2 of my first check engine light that I received on the 2020 Silverado 1500 Duramax pickup truck. If you guys haven't had a chance, please take a look at part 1, but I'm going to quickly recap what happened. So you'll see here we have the 175 miles until 65 mile an hour speed limit. That happened at 23,718 miles, so servicing the emissions system is what the truck was reporting. And now that brings us to today. So I've put a little over 300 additional miles on the pickup truck since the last video, and I've done at least 7 or potentially 8 restarts. So hopping in the truck, here we are going to go ahead and go into the accessory mode by holding down the start-stop button for 5 seconds. And you'll see the vehicle, all the ECUs and everything come back on. The glow plug light comes on. The check engine light stays on only because the engine isn't actually running. So we're going to go ahead and click on the trouble code thing and go ahead and click on that. I've sped this up just to save you guys some time. But after a couple seconds here, you'll notice that we don't have any fault codes being reported anymore. So my historical fault code is now gone, and my regular fault code is now gone also. So now we're going to go ahead and crank the truck up and take a look at some of the data.
So we're back again real quick. I want to go over one more thing with you guys. So my setup includes the Torque Pro application running on my Android phone, along with the OBD Link MX. And you'll see on there that there's a bunch of traffic going on. One of the things that could be happening is that this extra traffic, think of it like any other computer with any other kind of communication bus that's going on. So things are talking to each other. Sometimes if you're asking for too much data, and this will go with the iBanks or the Banks iMeter thing, or any of these other devices, the more stuff you plug in, the more questions that are being asked of the computers that are out there, the higher probability that there could be some errors that end up coming back as part of having this extra data. I still don't know exactly where my particular fault came from, but I do want to show you here on the EFI Live. You'll see basically that thing flashing, seeing all the data going on. I'm going to go into the scan tool and select the particular PIDs that I would like to see. And this gives me the ability to log them. So I'm going to go ahead and say I would like to record the data. Turns out I still have one PID that's the ECU is not responding correctly to, so I haven't figured out which one that one is yet. But I can go ahead and say yes. And we are now collecting frames. So you'll see the frames here and you'll see the time. Yesterday I collected a bunch of data, but unfortunately I didn't close the file properly. So I didn't actually end up with what I was hoping to show you guys, which is down here. So 68 regens. Def temperature right now is -4 degrees Celsius. No pressure. There's my consumption. That's the def level. That def level does not match the def level that I see on Torque. Up here is the def level showing 48.2.
This is 56.
For some reason, the Equinox with the turbo diesel, it's proper. These two actually line up, but between these, between the LM2 Duramax and the two different applications, they're different. So still working on that. So I'm showing no current on either one of these, but we're going to go ahead now and push the button to actually start the truck. Took a second there, and there we go. So some people, actually I've had a lot of really great responses from a bunch of people for my first video talking about how the DEF system actually works. I'm still trying to actually understand this particular current that you're seeing, I believe is the heater. I also truly believe that the truck doesn't keep that heater on because that type of current flowing would actually cause some big issues with this only has a single battery in it. After a little while, yesterday I actually saw both heaters running at the same time. The primary heater then shut off and the secondary heater stayed on for a little while longer. And basically my DEF temperature went from -4 degrees centigrade up to somewhere around 3 degrees centigrade. And at that point in time, basically both heaters were then off again. So kind of interesting in my book to see that we've got one heater. I believe that the DEF will actually freeze. Of course, it does suck the DEF back into the tank. I believe that this one heater element will basically warm up the DEF enough so that it's not freezing, and I don't know, we'll see. This winter, I will definitely be collecting more of this data to find out if I actually have a true freezing situation where that's the manifold absolute pressure. So we're not pumping any DEF at the moment, but I believe what ends up happening is the heater in the tank will actually warm up enough where the DEF can then start to flow, and then you'll end up pumping DEF up front to inject into the exhaust stream to clean up the exhaust. So that's a little bit more about the DEF and where we sit with this particular error code. And again, my plan is not to just go ahead and dump it off at the dealership and let them deal with it, because during a longer trip, I may not be able to dump it off at the dealership. And I know this goes against probably everybody's grains when you talk about, understanding how the vehicle runs and then helping it along to get me through whatever trip I'm on at that point in time. So let's quickly go back here and you guys can see no check engine light at the moment. Nothing has been replaced. And I went back and looked at the data for that particular day. I was thinking it was a little bit colder than today, but apparently it was a very similar day. So I don't know why I got the error message on 2 consecutive days, but I did. So we're going to keep monitoring this. This will be part number 2 of my video series on the check engine light, or the potential check engine light. And I did order one more tool for my kit of looking at how this engine runs and trying to figure out, am I causing the problem by running this application, or is it a combination? This application I'd hardly ever run, but I do run it at times in order to do a little bit better deep diving or debugging.
So we're back inside now, looking at the EFI Live application. You can see here the PIDs that I'm actually recording, or I'm logging these PIDs. I'm only recording 23 out of a possible 112 that are available to be able to log to a CSV file or log to the EFI application itself. But we're going to go ahead now and look at the actual data. So here's a screenshot of the Excel file that I actually opened up. I know you're not able to read it, but we're going to look at it now in a much better way. So here you can actually see the graph of that entire table. I want you guys to note 2 things. The truck ran for a while and then actually shut off. And then you'll notice a second area where the truck actually started back up again. The blue line is actually the engine RPM. And I did actually move the truck around the yard. So that's why you see some higher spikes. So it idles somewhere around 1,000 RPM until the restart. And then after the restart, we were down at like 700 RPMs. So the next thing to take a look at is the orange line. The orange line denotes the DEF temperature. So that starts out at -4 degrees centigrade and ends up somewhere around 3 degrees centigrade. The goldenrod line is actually the current going into the DEF heater number 1. DEF heater number 2 actually stays at 0 the entire time. But you'll notice that it peaks around 9 amps and then comes back down. Has a couple of other little peaks. I'm not exactly sure what those were. And then after the DEF tank has settled at 2 degrees centigrade, it ends up shutting off. So there has to be some kind of stabilization time before the heater will end up shutting off. So you'll notice even after the restart, and that was done with a remote start function on the key fob, the def heater did not come on because the fluid was high enough. So I would not expect to see any issues as long as the temperature is at 2 degrees centigrade or higher. The ECU won't actually command, or maybe it's the def controller, I don't know, won't command the heater to come on. So maybe it's not actually checking it. I'm going to continue to log data and see if we can get this figured out. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I really appreciate all of the comments. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all of the input that everybody has given me. And please subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification. Let me know if you guys have any other thoughts, any other things you'd like to see. And I will keep everybody posted. This is going to end up being more than just the 2 videos that I expected. It's probably going to end up being 3 or 4 or who knows, 5 maybe. But I'm here to make sure we try to get this figured out and find a way to get home safely.